Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. My name is Angela. Today is Tuesday, January 27th. How's it going? I'm a front-end developer and software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. And on this channel, we just talk about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We keep it simple here. That's all. No, I don't do libraries or frameworks, not because I don't like them. I just like to do the basics. That's all. So, like I said, it's just for fun, just for practice. I do also think that more front-end developers should work on their vanilla skills. Just my personal opinion. I think it'll make your life a little easier in the long run. So there's that. How's it going? Hopefully, if you are in a part of the US that was in the path of this big storm, hopefully you're doing okay. I'm hearing stories about Kentucky and like 20 other states who are covered in ice right now. I'm so sorry for you guys. I have to tell you, I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it was all to the south of us. We didn't experience any of that. I will say we've had a long, cold, snowy winter, so I'm glad that we didn't have to experience any of that. So hopefully you all are staying safe wherever you are. And Malik Robinson is here. Go Elmo. Hello, welcome. Safwan, I think I'm saying that correctly. Shalom. Hello. And Monique Robinson is here, triggering Nightbot, our bot in the chat. Yeah, so how's it going? How's everyone doing? Are we ready to continue working on our CSS? We started working on, let me get it pulled up here. We started working on this design this weekend really. And hang on, let me pull up. Did not get I've been up since 5 a.m. Holy shit, 5 a.m. Still not ready to go. What have I been doing? Such a good question. I've been watching YouTube, scrolling reels, anything but work, apparently. Sometimes I watch YouTube and I scroll reels at the same time. I watch my big screen and my little screen all at the same time. So, let's see here. So we're kind of working on the home page right now. This is a design that I did back in 2014. So if you're new here, yes, I'm a front-end developer. I've been doing front-end for 12, almost 13 years. I enjoy design, but I don't know if I'm like really that good at it. I think I'm like maybe okay at it. Anyways, back in 2014, when I had my first job as a front-end developer, I was just like trying to find my style. I was also a WordPress developer at the time. So I did a lot of design with WordPress and how WordPress is structured, how like best practices for like theme structure, right? So a lot of these designs are dated. They are not necessarily accessible because I wasn't thinking about accessibility back then. And they kind of have a structure like WordPress. Okay, you're never going to see me build a WordPress are long behind me. I don't enjoy WordPress. I have no desire to go back to that. But so we're taking this design and going to build it out as a 4-page static website. And I know there are people who would like to see me go a little deeper into JavaScript land and probably framework land. And I get the question a lot, why aren't you using Tailwind? And it's really, I have a tendency to, over explain this point. It's just a couple solid basic reasons for why I made this choice for this channel. Number one, I enjoy it. I truly enjoy vanilla. And number two, it's a niche on YouTube that I don't see other people really embracing, right? So my content is always going to be very project based and project focused. Yeah. So the whole point of this is to just get on here and build in public. This is also a chance for me to practice because I'm not very good at setting aside time for myself to practice. And this is a way to do that. And then I invite you guys in to hang out with me, and we chit chat. We chat about it. So, Bakash is here. Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Glad you're here. Okie dokie. Let's get started. So here's how far we got this past weekend. Yes, I did acquiesce to rounded corners on images. I'm willing to put rounded corners on any images that exist. Maybe not like the hero images, but like images like this. If we have time, we'll swap some of these out today. We did do a whole thing on Unsplash where I went through and did a bunch of image sourcing. I don't think I can be bothered today to spend a lot of time swapping out these images because I would really like to jump in and get this footer done. We're going to get the footer done. We're going to make sure that this header is nice and responsive. We have all of the markup in place, so it's nice and accessible. We've got buttons, SVGs, the whole 9 yards. So I think we should easily be able to get this footer done, get this header done, and then make sure everything is nice and responsive. And then I think on Thursday, we can jump into these inner pages. I also would like to do a contact form I use a third-party app called FormSpree. We've done a few of these now on the channel. I really do not enjoy dealing with email on servers. So third-party apps like this, I think you could use any one. I use FormSpree. I think they're great. They get the job done. No muss, no fuss. So here's where we are. Let's get started. I also think this past weekend, we were checking the color contrast for a lot of these colors. So like I said, back in 2014, I was not thinking about accessibility. Of course, I do always think about accessibility today. So there are going to be some subtle changes here to the footer, and then we will double check our work in the browser to make sure that we are meeting the contrast, the color contrast ratio for accessibility. So remind me if I don't do that, because sometimes I forget. If I don't do that, remind me. But that should be a priority today or at some point, but yeah, probably today. So we have and here's another beautiful thing about working with vanilla and just building static. I'm not here trying to sell you a solution that applies to everything in front end. I'm just here to tell you that you can do this in vanilla. And sometimes when you remove those abstraction layers, it simplifies the process, because think about like an organization or a small business that just needs some landing pages. Do you need React for that? Do you need Tailwind for that? Probably not. Those things add a lot of complexity, in my opinion. So what if you just built it static? Like, what if you just built it static? Or what if you just have a desire to get better at this and want to have a deeper understanding of how vanilla CSS works? I mean, just do a couple of projects vanilla. You'll figure out inheritance, cascade, specificity, things like that. And then you don't need a compiler. You don't need Node. You don't need a package manager. All you need is index.html, style.css, and script.js for a little JavaScript, a little DOM manipulation. That's all. That's all. Just a little teeny tiny bit. We should be able to get to that today too. So for the navigation, try it. See how it goes. Just try it. Monique is asking, do you have an affiliate link for FormSpree? That is such a good... Let me check here. Let me log in. I'm not technically paying for FormSpree right now, but let me log in and see if there is one. I don't think so. Wait, oh, hang on, let me check here. I don't think I have an affiliate link because I'm using the free version. Don't see anything here. That's a good question though. I do have affiliate links for Hover and for DigitalOcean for when that's where I host my domains, or I purchase my domains from Hover, and I host pretty much everything on DigitalOcean. So when we do deployment here, that's where those come from. Eventually I'm going to have to pay for FormSpree because I'm just going to get to a point where I'm going to probably have to pay for it. Once I do pay for it, if there is an affiliate link, I'll definitely. It's an excellent question, Monique. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm sure they're like, why would we give you a commission? You don't even pay us. So, oh, that's funny. I crack myself up sometimes. So, okay, let's get started. Let's get started on, this is like our subscribe area. I'm going to be ready for a nap. There's a nap in my future. So, okay. But not right now because I'm here with you and we're doing this right now. No napping. Okay, so the subscribe form is part of the footer, meaning obviously that I'm going to have this on every single page. And we ended last week by, instead of using padding, which is normally what I would do to hold a container open like this, we just went ahead and gave it an aspect ratio. And then once this form is styled, we'll make sure that that's responsive and that we are still kind of holding this container open on mobile. So, and Malika's saying, did we agree on every corner being smooth or certain ones being smooth? No, we can do rounded corners on everything. What I don't want to do rounded corners on are like the hero images, which are full width, right? So any image that is a full width image, I personally don't think that we need to have a rounded corner. But for images like this, we can definitely do rounded corners. These are only rounded on the top because, let me zoom in here, because these are in containers. So with this border. So that's why I don't have rounded corners on the bottom, but I was fine putting them on the top here. So if there are more images, we can do rounded corners. I've accepted that I gave you that power, so we can definitely do that. Okay, well, let's get started. We have a form that we need to style. Okay, good. We agree that any container that is fully visible works. Full width ones wouldn't make sense. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Glad we agree. You're the boss, Malik. I just work here. Okay. Not just images, though. That includes buttons, too. Okay, yes. I will give you rounded corners on buttons, but we're going to have to test the roundness of the buttons because I don't think I'm sold on a 15 pixel border radius for buttons. I usually do like 5 pixels. So we'll test 5, 10, maybe 15. So I'm willing to do that, but I don't know. I'm just not sure. We're going to test. We're going to test. Okay, here we go. So the form is also has the wrap class, and we gave the wrap class a max width of 75 rems and a margin of 0 auto to center. But we're also using flex here. We're using flexbox to align the content in the center on the Y axis, which would be this way, right? And then the margin 0 auto is what aligns it in the center on the X axis. So, and generally when you do that with Flexbox, the container will take up as much size as whatever is in the container, if that makes sense. So even though we have a max width of 75 rems, it will obey that, but it's collapsing to whatever the container is. So that's a little different. Usually it's the opposite. It's almost acting like a min width, but because it's Flexbox, it acts like that. So, okay, so let's style our inputs. Let's take a look at our contact form too, because I think, so our inputs on the contact form have a white background with, like, I would say fairly large, probably font weight 300 text, which basically matches what we're doing here. Oh, I guess it's all on the same page, right? No, it isn't. It's got a blue background. That placeholder text is definitely not accessible with contrast wise. Okay, so we're just going to have a different background color and we'll have to put a border on it. So we'll do subscribe as a parent. Well, but I also want to make sure that the structure of the forms is the same. So let's start a new section and just call it forms. And then the subscribe forms will be specific to the subscribe. So we'll just say input text, input type text, input type equals email. What else? Let's put a few different types in here just to cover some bases. Type equals telephone. Input type equals password. Input type equals text, email, telephone, password. What else? Search. Input type equals, I don't think we need to go too crazy here. Type, email, telephone, password, search. Maybe that's enough. And for the inputs, I think we want to say background color can be white. We'll give this a border, 2 pixels, solid. I don't know if we want to do 2 or 1. We'll try 2. We'll give it a border, background color white, border 2 pixels. Font size, let's go 1.5 rems. Font weight 300. That looks pretty good. And then specifically for the subscribe, we would want to say subscribe, input background color. Maybe transparent, so it takes on just the background of the container. Why did that? Oh, subscribe. Hang on, did I spell that wrong? Subscribe input. Oh, it probably wants to be a little more specific. All right. Yeah, we definitely need this to be 1 pixel. And then let's style our placeholder text. Color. Oh, probably did this wrong twice in a row. It doesn't look quite right without. It doesn't look quite right without. One moment. Okay. It definitely looks better if it's not bright white, but that is not accessible. Also, let's give it some more padding. Maybe 0.5 rems all the way around. That looks better. It looks better already just with padding. Maybe that's enough. Let's style our button. So here's our form type submit. So we'll style the buttons like this, and then I'll just do a different background for the subscribe. So we'll say button type equals submit. Whoops. Give it a background color of blue. A border of 1 pixel, solid white. What else? Pretty much all of these. Should we just add this? Let's just add this to the stack. And then let's make sure this has a hover, but all the buttons should have a cursor pointer. So we can do that here. And then let's make sure, does that look right? Yeah, I guess that looks right. It's wider. Let's give it a little more. Give it some extra padding. There we go. There, that looks good. Actually, I think I'm okay with this. I mean, we need to do a hover, but yeah, that looks good. Oh, okay, good. We'll test the buttons, the border radius on the buttons. Silence for 24 hours is here. Welcome. Thank you for hanging out with us today. Okay, so I'm thinking that if we're gonna give the buttons rounded corners, let's just add that up here to the global styles. So border radius, let's start with 5 pixels. See, the problem is on the buttons is that the button's gonna have rounded corners, but the inputs are not. So, I would be fine giving this submit button rounded corners because it's not aligned with anything else. But this, the subscribe button, I don't think should have rounded corners. Unless we just give all the form inputs rounded corners. It's a lot of rounded corners. Just for the heck of it, what if it was 15? Oh, I really don't like that. I don't like that either. I'm not going to give the inputs border radius. And for this button in particular, just the subscribe button, it's not going to have border radius. Here's why I'm vetoing that. It's because I never agreed to buttons to begin with, right? Never agreed to the button rounded corners to begin with. It was always, listen, don't push your luck. It was always about the images. It was never about the buttons. So I feel comfortable vetoing that. And then let's do a hover active focus. Well, we need it anyways. Do we just want to do it on the global style? We definitely can. So we'll say focus. Hover. Active. Wait a second. Vetoing my veto. As long as I have some smooth corners, I am fine with your choices. Okay, thank you. Because I feel like I agreed to images and then you snuck in buttons. So, like, I'm just saying. But we can put border radius on all the other buttons, just not that one. So, so button by default has a background color of transparent. I think that we can do most of our styles here though, and then just define the individual styles. Background color, 300 milliseconds. Ease in, out. Maybe Do I want to do this for... I'm kind of, see, I think I'm changing my mind now that I do want to move these down to the form styles. Yeah. And then let's put the form styles above the subscribe styles. And then that way we have the correct cascade, right? So things are going in the right order. So this has these buttons have by default a background color of white, which means that they would have a color of blue. So on focus hover active, they would have a background color of blue with a color of white. And then we could also put a transition here. And then what specifically are we transitioning? Well, we have to change the button color for the subscribe form. By default is white, so it's the opposite. So this is background color, white, color, dark blue, and then we're going to transition this, focus, hover, whoops, active, then we would transition this to dark blue, and this to white. Did I get this right? Yeah. That works. And then subscribe for news and updates. So we do need a header in here as well. We are we going to have to go back and check the tape and see what the conversation was? I mean, if I'm wrong, I always thought it was images, but I could be wrong. Okay, let's put a heading in here. So our grid sections have H3s. If we're going to start a new section, then I think that would be an H2, and I think we can change this from a div to a section. Because in order to have a section, you have to have a heading. So let's do it. And then we'll do H2 secondary heading and subscribe for news and updates. Subscribe for news and updates. Just like that. And you're going to check. Okay. Okay. Silence for 24 hours says, I have a suggestion which will not interfere with the actual design, but it will add a dynamic look to the form. Okay, tell me what your suggestion is. I think I know what you're going to suggest, but you suggest it and I will see what you have to say. One moment. Okay. Okay, so here's our H3, or our H2 rather. Why are these inline? H2s are block level elements. Why are those inline? Oh, because this is display flex. Yeah, that makes sense. Can I just make this width 100%? Yes. I think so. Can I? Yes, I can just make that width 100%. And we'll center it. Subscribe. Secondary heading. Width 100%. And then font size. I think it would be good if we used, like, I kind of like this as a size. Is that too big? Yeah, that might be too big. What's the size that we used for this text? This right here. And I think we also need this to be font weight 300. She's big. And also text align center. That's not too bad. And then let's make sure there's a little bit of margin. Oh, you know why I bet margin not going to work? That doesn't look too shabby. Let's go with 2. I feel like either the text should be smaller or the input should be bigger. But I like the size of the text. Should we make the input just like a little bit bigger? Oh, I like this suggestion. Let's talk about this. All right, my thought for the form is that you can place the image used in the hero behind the form and give the form itself a CSS backdrop filter blur, where the background image is fixed. I actually like this suggestion. So I think basically you're saying don't have this white box. I see. Now I think that there needs to be I still think that there needs to be this container, but I don't think that the container needs to have this much opacity. Can I still have this container with a little bit of opacity and then we blur the image? Tell me what you think of that. Tell me what you think of that. But I thought you were going to suggest something different. I thought you were going to say, hey, let's actually make the label be inside the input, and then on focus or active, it would transition. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? The kind of forms where the label, once the input is focused, it like does a little transition, which I didn't want to do. I don't want to do that. So, and Malik says, okay, I have reviewed the tape and can confirm I never specified all corners being smooth, so I will accept just images being smooth. Okay, so what I'm wondering, Malik, not to put you on the spot, was the word image ever part of the conversation? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. Okay, and Silence 24 Hours is saying no, the blur effect only. Interesting. So no box, just the image. I'm willing to try it. We'll try it. Once we get to the form, we can try it. We did this before. We did this on another project. I'm not sure, Silence, if you were here on this project. We finished this maybe a month or so ago, a couple months ago. And we've got, I think we did this background is blur. So we've done the filter blur property before, but I haven't done it to an image. So we'll do it to an image this time. Yeah. I'm willing to try it. Okay, I want to make the inputs just a little bit bigger. So where's our inputs? Right here. And Malik says, no, images was never in it. I reminded you about the border radius while you were working on the grid, so it was implied. Okay, well, fair enough. As long as I have, well, of course I can veto. I'm the one actually sitting here doing it. This is the only border radius that I'm going to veto, and it's not even an image. So there's that. This just needs a little more padding. So what if we just go one rem all the way around? And a little more on the left and right. There we go. Okay, I like that. It needed to be a little beefier. Oh, and when I type, nothing happens. So we have to make sure that the color is dark blue. That's why. So the color actually needs to be white, but for the button, color actually needs to be white. And the button is getting, okay, got it. Okay, wait a second. No, that's right. So where is, oh, it's right here. That's why. It's right here. Got it. Okay. I was getting confused for a minute. And including the box, but making the background image to be a blur. So when the user is focused more on the form, you got my point. Thank you for considering my suggestion. Yeah, of course. I think it's actually a really good suggestion, and I love it when people say, hey, let's try this. So when we get to the form, probably on Thursday this week, we'll do some blur. I'm totally down for it. So, and Malik says the call stands. You have yourself a deal. I approve of all other creative directions you take that do not involve images. Fair, totally fair. Okay, so let's make sure that this is, well, let's get the rest of the footer done before we attempt any responsiveness. This is a big screen. This is a big screen. I don't know if this is going to be too big, although if we're zoomed into about 150, I think that's okay. I think that's okay. It'll look more normal once we get the rest of the footer done here. So, okay, so we have our social media icons first. So we're done with this. And I always put social media icons in navigation in a nav element because it's links, right? It's a link list. That's navigation. Social icons. And I think really I'm going to be styling that UL, the social nav. So we'll take off the padding and the margin because it's an unordered list, and we'll say list style type none. There we go. And then I think also display flex flow. I'm going to say row, no wrap. Space between, no, justify content every time. Justify content. I think I'm just going to say center. Align items, also center. And then we'll just say gap. We'll try 2 rems. Beautiful. And we need to go find that X icon. So we'll do that today. We'll get that figured out so it's fully styled. And then the outer container is the nav element, this right here. So we'll say social navigation. Background color is our lighter blue color. Do we also want to give this? No. I was thinking, should we also give this aspect ratio? We could. Should we just do this? I think that's a little too much. Let's just give it some padding. We'll just give it some padding. So we'll do 3 rems on the top and bottom, 1 rem on the left and right. I think we're going to want to put a container around these 2 things, aren't we? Yeah, so let's do a div. We can just call this social footer. Oops. And then these styles would actually go on the social footer class, wouldn't they? And technically we could add wrap here. I don't know if we're really going to need it because everything's going to be centered already. Oh, no, we wouldn't want to put wrap here because we need that to be the outermost container. If we needed to, we could put wrap. I just don't think we need it because everything's going to be centered. Yeah. And I think it's going to need a lot more padding. And then let's make sure that everything is text align center and color white. And then we need to make sure that our links are also color white. Social footer, anchor element, color white, and we're probably going to have to make the text decoration color white as well. Text decoration color also white. And then do we have, I think we're going to want to do a transition here also. No problemo. So we'll say focus, hover, active. We want the text decoration color on hover to just, I think, be transparent. There we go. That's just fine. So let's make sure that our icons are styled. Let's go find that X icon. And by let's go find, I really just mean let's dig through my folders to see if we can find it. So here's our SVGs. I think I have it. Logos. Let me see here. Icons. Do I not have like an icons? Fonts. Do I not have icons? Icons. Logos? No. Icons right here. Okay. Font awesome. SVGs, brands. Pretty sure there's an X icon here. You know what we're going to do? I have a better idea. Instead of always going to look for one, just going to copy it right out of the browser. Look at that, aria hidden true. I don't think we need their classes, so we can take out the classes. There, beautiful. There's the X icon. SVGs. We should do that from now on. Just X SVG. SVG. From now on, that's what we're going to do. There we go. See, do you remember what I said last time? When I was putting in the fill and the stroke, I remembered distinctly that I was always running into this one situation where one icon had a fill and a stroke. And we don't need both. So here's what I think we should do. I think since everything else has a fill, let's just do... we only have one path, so can we just do stroke equals none? Beautiful. It's like wizardry. It's pure magic, CSS. It's pure magic, CSS. Look at that. Don't be afraid with your SVGs. First of all, don't be afraid to embed them. I know that a lot of people you like call them like images. That is an HTTP request, and if you're trying to keep your page lean, don't constantly call your SVGs as images. And also, when you do that, you just don't have the control over your SVGs the way you do if they're just embedded on the page. When you embed them on the page, you can use different attributes, you can change the color, the stroke, you can do so many things. It's just code, it's just XML. So yeah, it's very powerful. SVGs are very powerful. Honestly, SVGs were a game changer for me the day I looked up, and I actually did this on stream, the day I looked up what is the default display property of an SVG, because they're by default display inline. And an inline element, if you don't know that it's inline, is very difficult to style. And what are SVGs? They are almost always a block level element that need padding and margin and width and need to be like really moved around on the page, right? That is just about impossible to do with an inline element. The day it occurred to me to look that up and realize what that was, and I started setting just as a global setting, either display block or display inline block, my whole life changed. My whole life changed when it came to SVGs. So get to know SVGs. Just get to know their display properties, the fill, the stroke. Even just those three very simple things will completely change your life and how you deal with SVGs. So yeah, I play with SVG shapes a lot. Agreed. I do too. So, well, I don't know if I deal with the shapes so much as just like the sizing and the layout, but this is magical to me. It's just magical to me. So okay, so let's keep going. We're on a roll. It's such a small thing, but there we go. Makes a huge difference. I've personally have spent hours of my life wrestling with SVGs, having a very, very difficult time dealing with them. And it's all because I never checked to see what the display property was by default. So it was a turning point in my career. So Okay, so social nav, whoops. So social nav, I'm going to use the UL class, and we're just going to go ahead and change the fill to, well, we're going to change it to dark blue, and then we will put padding around it that will be white for accessibility. So it's going to be kind of the opposite of how we currently have, because the current styles, this is not accessible, those two blues together. So we'll say blue, excuse me, fill is white. And then let's make sure that, well, the padding would actually be on the anchor element, right? Not the SVG itself. So social nav, the anchor element. Anchor elements by default are also display inline. So let's change that to display block. We'll give it some padding. I want these to be 48 by 48, but you know what? Honestly, they could be bigger. That's the minimum tap target for accessibility. So let's maybe do padding, 1 rem all the way around, and a background color of white. And we can give this a border radius of 5 pixels. We're just gonna check, see how it looks. And then let's set our width to 2 rems and our height to 2 rems. And let's see here. Whoops. What did I do? Oh no, the fill is dark blue. And why are they so tall? Why? I feel like I had this problem on our last build too. So there's 32 by 32. Is it the line height? Is it the line height? It must be, because usually, you know what I'm usually doing is I'm usually styling. No, I'm not. That's not true. I was going to say buttons, but that's not true. It's usually... Well, let's look. Can we look at this for a second? Because I don't feel like I ran into this problem on this build. See how nice and square that is? It's like a perfect little square. So it's display block, padding 0.75, border radius. Is it because of the text decoration? I don't think so. But I didn't do anything to make, other than the padding and then this display. Is it because these are display block and these are display inline block? Why? Why are they not perfect squares? That's what I don't understand. Does it need to be display? Yes, display inline block. Wow, how did I not realize that? Display inline block was adding that space, was adding the line height. So if we didn't if we kept this inline block and just did line height 1, 0, that doesn't change it. So it has to be display block. I just learned something new. I just put the pieces together. It's even simpler to use the SVG to animate in React. You just have to pass props. Interesting. So React has some built-in functionality to deal with animating SVGs. Okay, so from now on, because I've been doing display block on all of my SVGs, but I had started doing display inline block, and on the last two builds this happened. And I think on our last build, which was the coffee, I had the same problem here. And I just wasn't sure why. So I had to put, well, I did a line height 1. And see, this has extra space on the bottom. I put display block on the anchor element, and that still has extra space on the bottom. I did line height 1. Interesting. Well, now I know that this needs to be display block. Interesting. Yeah, Color Shirts says this is why I use display block on most image tags. Yeah. I was always using display block on my SVGs, and I had started using inline block. I don't even know why I decided to do that. And it makes perfect sense now that inline block is still going to add that extra space that inline always has, which is related to the line height. So, all right, well, problem solved, mystery solved. We love a good mystery. So, okay, now let's make sure that we can hover active focus on these. And do we want this to be the default state? I don't think so. I think that this should be the hover active focus state. So let's change this. Let's make this transparent. And let's make this white. Just like that. Let's reduce this gap a little bit. Yeah. I'm not sure about how far, I'm not sure about this spacing. Oh, maybe it's okay. We actually might want this to be bigger, but okay, well, let's keep going here. So we want the social nav, anchor element, focus. Oops. Hover. Active. And we'll change the background color to white. And we're going to take these three things and we'll trigger that SVG. And we'll change the fill to dark blue. And then let's make sure that we have a transition here for the background color. Oops. 300 milliseconds, ease in out, and we want a transition here for the fill. Why is the cursor not changing? This is like a Chrome thing. that sometimes the cursor just doesn't change. I don't know why. Let's relaunch. I don't know. Why isn't the cursor changing? It does it. Am I the only one that experiences this in Chrome? It won't change here either. It'll barely change. I can still grab it and move it, but it really won't change. I don't know why. These are anchor elements. The browser should do that by default. I shouldn't have to change the cursor. And even if I did, it's still, the cursor just doesn't change sometimes. I don't know. It's weird. So, okay, well, it doesn't matter. So here's 150, which is a pretty good representation on my big screen of what this might look like on a laptop. Well, no, the problem isn't that the cursor, the problem isn't the CSS, it's that Chrome is not. So look, even when I hover on anchor elements, the cursor won't change. So anchor elements by default get a cursor pointer in the browser. And the SVGs are inside of the anchor element. So once you hit the anchor element with the mouse, that should trigger the cursor. It won't change for anything. So we did set cursor pointer, but do you guys see that it's not happening on the anchor elements either? That is a default browser behavior, that your cursor should change on an anchor element. You shouldn't ever have to put that. Even if we did, I don't think it would matter. I'll do it right now, and I still don't think it's going to matter. And also, we have cursor pointer on the buttons. It's still not working. So it's the browser. Nobody else experiences this in the browser? Let's open Firefox. This has been happening just for like the last couple of months in Chrome. There we go. We got a nice cursor change. Ooh, look at that. Oh, I'm glad we checked this. Look what's happening here in Firefox. It's really treating these differently. I wonder why. Can we animate the transition between the cursor pointer and cursor select? Not that I'm aware of, because I don't write CSS for the cursor. Well, I mean, I do. But it isn't the cursor that gets the state, it's the button that gets the state. I'm a little more concerned about this. Why aren't these? Oh, did I just forget to change the size of the button? Hang on, what's going on here? I thought these were all grouped together. I bet that the button is display inline block and the inputs are display inline, but I'm not sure what's going on here. It's so tiny. Let's see if I can move this to a different part of the screen. Okay. So here's the button, which is 156 by 61. And then we've got these inputs. Oh, the inputs have line height? I bet the inputs have line height. Yep, look at that. So when I take the line, so normalize is putting line height of 1.15 on buttons by default. So the line height should be, well, what should it be then? Well, it's putting it on the button, the input. Did I put line height someplace else? I'm not seeing it. Well, it's 1.65. So if I take this off, I'm so confused. If they're all grouped together, why does it matter? So if we change this to normal, do we have to change this to normal? I don't even know what those values mean or why that matters. Okay, so we'll group these all together. We'll say line height. I feel like we went down a whole nother rabbit hole here, but we'll just say line height normal. And that seems to have fixed it. Yes. And it's always on something completely unexpected. But that's why we check. That's why we check. We check, we learn, we make sure that we're being thorough. Okay, I actually think that these SVGs could be a lot bigger. I kind of want to make them bigger. So right now they're 2 rems by 2 rems. Let's do 3. Yeah, I kind of like that. And then I think they need just a little more space. So we're not doing anything too fancy here with the layout. It's just a kind of a default column. So we could probably use, we could come back here and use a little margin. No, that's going to go on the UL though. Where's the best place to put this? Maybe just give a little margin after the social navigation class. Right here. So we can say margin and maybe 2 rems to push it down. That make a difference? Yeah, I guess so. Let's go ahead and make sure that this is all responsive. And where are we on time here? Okay. We're doing good. We're doing good. hang on, we're in Firefox. Let's go back to Chrome. There we go. Now the cursor is working. It's completely random. Completely random. But there it is. It's working. Okay. So let's make sure this doesn't look too good. So I think this is also going to need some padding. So subscribe is the outermost container. So if it also has padding with aspect ratio, I don't think that'll make it bigger. So let's just do 1 rem of padding all the way around. And then I think that this could be a good time to, on our inputs, because our inputs also have a lot of padding, maybe this is a good time to use clamp for padding. If we go back to just 1 rem all the way around, it's going to be easier. So this right here, let's clamp this. So maybe we want on mobile, we want the padding to be 0.5. And then on desktop, we want it to be 1 rem. And then that would be like 2 VW for that in-between size. Let's... And I think we need more padding on this also. You know what? I'm going to let you Google it. I'm going to let you Google it. Let's see here. And then let's make sure, whoops, upstairs neighbor is doing a little cleaning. I don't know if you guys heard that. She dropped something. Let's make sure that our inputs and our buttons are display block on mobile. So where does this break down? Right around 768. Perfect. So we'll do a media query for, honestly, let's just do them at 1024 because we don't know what the size of our other form is going to be, and it'll keep it nice and consistent. We'll just say these can be display block. There. And then I think we want these also to be with 100%. And then maybe give them a little bit of margin. I think we need to adjust this So if this was 1, would that work? You know, we're not really, yeah, we're not really defining these elements, are we? Because buttons by default are display inline block, and inputs, are inputs just display inline by default? No, they're also display inline block by default. So we can give, we really should be defining a width. These are just sort of like organically their width, right? Well, I mean, we don't have to. It keeps it kind of simple, right? We'll have to see how this looks on mobile. So if I try to support down to about 320. I think that's okay. I assumed everybody would know what that meant. So that's just me being lazy and running out of ideas for how to title my streams. Also, I forgot to schedule the stream. I used to schedule everything like 24 to 48 hours in advance. Heidi, stop. Take it easy. Now I'm scheduling things an hour in advance. This morning, I have been up since 5 a.m. this morning, and I still forgot to do it until an hour before the stream. Yeah, so that's just me being a little lazy. You know, I think that this works. Display inline block is a great property. It really is. It does so much. So we can just let these continue to all be display inline block. They line up organically. We don't have to really do anything. We don't need flexbox. We don't need anything. We just give some padding, define a font size, and then we pop in a media query. And this looks fine. We could make these wider. I put in width 100%, which is, what are these actually? These are 271. So if we wanted to, if we're changing their display property at 1024, there's a lot of space here. So what if we make these width 600, but then we have to say a max width of 100% so they stay responsive. Oh, that didn't work. What's going on there? I gave you a max width, so why wouldn't that work? Because this is, why would that matter? That has a max width. Because of the aspect ratio, maybe? Oh, so maybe we just want to take display flex off. Just for the media query. That's, yeah, we could do that because we're not really trying to center it anymore. So we've got display flex on the parent. So if that's the only media query that we have to write for this form, that's not really that big of a deal. So 1024 pixels. Well, I think that's going to be too big. If the form is, if we're Probably 600 since that's the width of... We'll test it here. Probably 600 pixels plus 2 rems, which would really be 632 because a rem is 16. There we go. That works. I like it. Cute. I also approve of this joke. I also approve of this joke. Okay, what else do we have to do here? So how's the rest of our footer looking? The rest of our footer needs some help. So these are in a row because they are row no wrap right here. So I think, honestly, maybe we just want to make sure that these are able to wrap. And then I think also we need to adjust the padding. So let's do a media query for this padding for the social footer right here. I'm going to take this down from, well, let's just make sure that these can wrap and see where they wrap. Let's see where they start wrapping, and then that's going to be our media query. So like 500, that's really good. Maybe 600 though. Should we just do 600? Or 632, which is what we did for the form? Or do we want to do it at 1024, which is where the form starts? Let's do 1024. So the padding changes when the container above also changes. There's no prescribed set of media queries, especially when you're doing vanilla and you're doing static and you're rolling your own for pretty much everything. Let the design dictate where your media queries are. And if you want to use media queries for everything, you can. If you want to use clamp for everything, you can do that too. If you want to do both and pick and choose, you can do that. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I tend to favor media queries because I still think of clamp as being a really new thing. I literally don't even know how old it is, but it feels new to me because I've only been using it for a few months. But I've been using media queries for 12 and a half years. So I'm very comfortable writing media queries, and I'm also very comfortable letting the design kind of tell me where those breakpoints need to be. And there is nothing wrong with that. When you let the design sort of dictate where they are, you will be more efficient with your media queries instead of putting in prescribed numbers, in my opinion. So I think this social footer padding. So we'll put a media query here. Oops. And that keeps it pretty tight. So if you were on an iPad, this would be very tidy, I think. And then we don't really start to wrap until about here. And I think we actually could, my instinct honestly is to just take out the gap and change the size of the SVG, but leave the padding. Let's try that. So if we take out the gap, that's the social nav, but I'm going to wait and do that until it wraps. So I'm going to do another media query. At 500 pixels. And that's the social nav. I'm going to change the gap to 0. And then I'm going to change the size of the SVG, so the social nav SVG, to 2 by 2. Oops. Yeah. And then I think we have some margin here. So let's adjust this margin also. Social navigation. Right now, that's got 2 rems of margin. So let's change it. I think we can just change it to 1. It's the parent container. There. So now these have a little bit of breathing room. And this text can just wrap. Just wrap naturally. That's fine. What do we think? So this would be an iPhone SE, which is, pretty small, 375. I tried to support down to 320, even though I honestly don't think that it needs to be 320. This is a little goofy here on the side because we haven't done our header yet. But this is a very good representation of what this is going to look like. And I think this looks really nice. Looks nice and tidy. So let's get started on our header. That took a little longer than I thought it was going to. But that is okay because I'm happy with the result. So let's get started on this header. The way I like to do mobile navigation is I do a click event. So we're, okay, Angela, use your words. So when we get down to a certain size, like maybe, I think 1024 is pretty solid for this design. So like right here, here's 1025, 1023, right in here. We're going to, well, first of all, although we could do 960, at 960, we're changing this from position fixed to position static, so you can see that change there. So maybe we want to pop into mobile at 960. Yeah, let's do that. So we'll do a media query for 960. So where's our navigation? Right here. So we have a couple things that we're doing here for desktop. We're display nunning both the buttons, the open button and the close button. So we'll do our media query for the navigation here. So these are the menu button. We're going to say display block. So we'll let those shine. Ray Hell says, story of vanilla coding, mindful forever. That took a little longer than expected. I mean, in my own defense, everything takes longer than I expect. Everything. So, that is just the story of my life. That's funny. And then we are going to hide the navigation. And so here's how I like to hide navigation. Also, let's talk about how I wanted the navigation to function for this particular site. We almost always, like here's the last site that we did. And this is a good representation of how I almost always do navigation. There's a button and there's a drawer from the left or the right. I was kind of thinking about doing something different. I was thinking about having it drop down from the top. What do we think? Let's try it and see what happens. Now we could have a drawer that drops down from the top and is just an overlay, or we could have a drawer that drops down from the top and pushes the whole site down. Let's be crazy. Let's like get out of our comfort zone and see if we can do something crazy. So, mindful coding. I got your point. I got your point. So, okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is say position fixed. I'm going to say left 0, width 100%, and then I think I want it to be bottom 100%. So we're pushing it up from the bottom 100%, and now it's completely gone. So we should actually see that. Well, we should see it sort of represented here. Right up at the top. And the best way to transition that is to just set a transform, or wait a second, that's backwards. Transform, translate, we probably want to translate this on the y-axis since we're moving it up and down. That would be moving on the y-axis. So let's just set that at, we'll say that's position 0. And then let's add a body class here because we haven't done any JavaScript yet. So we'll say menu active. And then we would do a new class, or we would do a new thing here that says menu active navigation, and we would transform that. So transform, see, now this is going to be a little different because we don't know the height. So do we want to set the height of this container? We definitely can. Let's just say 500 pixels just for the heck of it. So if we know that the height is 500 pixels high or tall, and you would have to do this if it was coming out from the left or the right, you would have to set a width. And usually I do like 300 pixels. So we would transform, translate Y, and I think we would do a positive number to move it down. So translate Y 500 pixels. And let's make sure that there's a background color. White. There it is. It's right there. It's not really styled. So if we come in here to the browser and take that off, just like that. So that's working. We don't have an animation on it yet, but it is working. And Silence says, I am loving the idea. Can you add some bouncing effect when it is near the end of the animation? Maybe we could use Animate and try a bouncing effect. Let's get it working first. do we want to move the whole page down, or do we just want to have it translate or transform? Yeah, I don't know. Is that good for accessibility to move an entire page up and down like that? I kind of just want to have this come down on its own. And question, have you used the Chrome extension like Debug.css and CSS Peeper to just get an easy understanding of the look and feels, add lines and grids, and kind of helps with the pixels and parameters? I haven't. I just use the dev tools and my own imagination. So, but yeah, I mean, I could definitely check those out. I haven't though. Good. Thank you for the suggestion. So let's keep our menu active here. So this is just permanently open. Let's style these actual nav items because I don't think we need this much space. So let's get our drawer styled, and then we'll be able to figure out how much space we actually need here. There's no good way to do this dynamically. So it is kind of a best practice that you're transitioning a transform, but it's not the end of the world if you transition like top, bottom, left, right. That's not the end of the world. I did that for years. I've only recently been transitioning the transform. So if we didn't want to set a height, if you really needed that to be more dynamic, you could just use bottom instead of transform. Since this is a static website, I'm comfortable setting a height. It doesn't bother me. But if you really need this website to be dynamic, you might consider a different approach than this, just so you have the flexibility on the height. So, or maybe from top -40 VH to top 0 translates smooth. Yeah, that's a good, maybe from top -40 to top. Yeah. So if it's a best practice to transition a transform. That's why I'm doing it this way. But you could absolutely do top or bottom. You could absolutely transition a top or a bottom instead. I'm going with transform because that's the better. That's considered a best practice for transitions. So. But yes, you could absolutely do it that way too. And if you, yeah, like I said, if you needed it, although I would honestly take the approach of, bottom 100%. Here's why. If you transition, although you're gonna still need to have a value for it. You still need to have a value for it to know the height. Bottom 100%. Should we do an experiment? Bottom 100% pushes it 100% off, but top 0 would push it back down. Should we do an experiment? Because I'm curious now. If you didn't want to worry about the height. So you would have maybe top. Is auto a valid? Yeah, auto is valid. Do you even need left? You do need left. So what if instead we go from, you would go from you would go to top 0, bottom auto. That works too. And then you don't have to, you still have to transition. You would still have to transition top and bottom. Well, do you? I don't know. We'll just say all. Yeah, it's not transitioning. I don't think you can transition from an auto. Or what if you just transition the top? It's only going to work in one direction then. Let's make this a different color because I can't tell. So let's make it blue just for... Yeah, the transition doesn't work. That's okay. That was a little experiment. We're just going to stick with what we have. This is the whole point of doing this though, right? The whole point of doing this is that you can practice. Am I right? I know I'm right. And then now we transition the transform. Just like that. Clearly it doesn't need to be this big though. Window on load, add the class that triggers the CSS animation. I mean, I would just use, I don't think you need this for an animation. Can't you just use a keyframe? I'm just going to use the animate. I would just use this, but let's finish styling. Patience, grasshopper, patience, grasshopper. One moment. Yeah, I don't think you don't need JavaScript to add CSS animations. These, with keyframes, they will trigger on load. So we're going to use, I think we should use this. But let's get this styled. Let's finish getting this styled. Okay, let's change this back to white. And I think this is way too big. You can animate on the body parent element of a section containing the hero, section, and cards and rest without touching the nav. How about it? You can animate on the body, the parent element of the section containing the hero section and cards and the rest without touching the nav. How about it? Yeah, we can. I mean, I'm open to that. Let's, so what do you want to have happen on the body? What is it that you want to have happen? I am totally open to an animation. I'm going to finish the navigation. Yeah, so we're going to finish the navigation here first. I just want to get this drawer styled really quick, and then I'm down to try any ideas that you have. So let's make sure that our main nav. Yes. Do you know what that's from? Tell me if you know what it's from. I kind of think you have to be Gen X to know what that means, but I'll let you decide. Okay, where are we? We're right here. I think we just need to make sure that these are, this is display flex. Usually I just change the flex direction. So we'll go right here. Main nav. Flex direction. Column. And I usually take out the gap. There we go. Let's make sure that this entire container has some padding. Let's give it a rem of padding all the way around. Let's give this a little bit of a box shadow, which the header already has a box shadow, but we're covering that up. That's fine. So we'll say 0 on the x-axis. We want 1 pixel on the y, 1 pixel blur, 1 pixel spread. And then we'll do RGBA 0, 0, 0, 10%. Now we've got a little bit of box shadow there. So when we're scrolling over another part that's white, we see that there's that little lift off the page. And then here's our button, which I think I want the button to be where do we want the button? Do we want the button to stay where it is? I guess it can just stay where it is. You know what we could also do? Instead of having this be white, we could make it dark blue and make the text white. And then here's the LIs. I think these should also be, should these be, I mean, this is probably a more realistic width here, right? Do we want it to be full width? I think so. So let's make sure that those are the main nav LI. We'll say width 100%, and then the main nav anchor element should be display block. They are display inline by default. And then let's give this I think this should be 0.5 on the top and bottom. And then we can make these and then let's give these a border bottom. We'll say 3 pixels, solid, and let's use our gray color. Dotted. Let's do dots. There we go. And I think I always screw this up. Do I want to do padding or margin? Oops. Rems. There we go. And then let's take out that last line. Last of type. Whoops. You could do last child. I usually do last of type. I like it. Yeah, I think this looks good. I think this looks great. Now this is full width right here. So it's nice big tap target. I think the height is only 37.4 pixels. Let's give it just a little more juice. There we go. I mean, there, that looks pretty good, actually. And it's got a nice big tap target. It's still only 45. Is that enough? Although the ink, that's all on the... That needs to be on the anchor element. So let's go back to 0.25. And I think this needs to be padding 1 rem. That might be too much. Yeah, that's too much. I do like to have a nice tab target. So let's make sure that we have a little extra height here. So what's the organic height? If there was no. Height. So without a defined height, this is 322.59 pixels. I mean, what, if we do auto, can we not transition, maybe just do 100? Could you just do 100%? Would that work? I feel like this works. So now this is transform 100%. There you go. That's the now it's dynamic. Look at that. That makes it completely dynamic. You do not have to have a defined width. I feel like I feel like when it slides out from the left or the right, you really have to have your transition needs to be a pixel value. And a lot of that has to do with the responsiveness. If the window were to get smaller than the defined pixel value, I feel like that I kind of discovered that. That's why I do that way. This obviously works. This is ideal. This is the ideal to not have to define that. And Silence says, I am a grasshopper. That's from an old TV show, I think, called Kung Fu. Kung Fu TV show. What was that? Yeah, Kung Fu TV show. Yeah, this is with David Carradine. We used to watch this when we were kids. I'm old. When was this on? First episode, 1972. How long did this go? It only had 3 seasons. I mean, I was not alive in 1972, so we must have been watching reruns. But I very clearly remember watching this TV show when we were kids. So, release 1972, it ran to 1975. So, well, I remember watching it in the 80s on reruns. So, yeah. Also do the animate by traditional method window on load function less code. You don't need any JavaScript for animate. You don't need any JavaScript for animate unless you have animations on something that's not that you have to scroll to get to. You don't actually need it. You can just add the CSS classes. It's just got utility classes that you add, and the keyframes do all the work. So we'll get to it. We'll get to it. For now, I'm pretty happy with this. I think we need to add a little more. We need to remove the padding and the margin on this last item. And then let's go ahead and style our buttons. Let's just style this button. And then on Thursday, we will implement the JavaScript and we will play with the animation. I promise. We'll do an animation. I have no problem doing that. So, and I love Animate CSS. I've been using these guys for years. I love it. So, yeah, I have every confidence that we can get that implemented in a way that we all love. So let's make sure that our button is styled. That is the perfect size. It's 48 by 48. So this is just I guess we could style them by the menu button because I think it would be the same. So we will just style the menu button right up here. We can style this here. So let's say background color is transparent. Yes. It's already 48 by 48. Yeah, we need to adjust this because we need the button to have padding. So I'm going to do padding 0.5 rems, and then we'll do menu button SVG. I want this to be 2 rems, and then that will equal 3. So we'll do width, height, So 48 by 48, and then there's our SVG. Boy, that SVG has a lot of space around it. Why does that look so different? Yeah. Every time I sit down and do a new project, it's like a big surprise. So we gave the menu button a width and a height of 3 rems. And then the SVG was yeah, I was controlling a lot of that by setting the width and the height, because I was having trouble with the display property. So well, we can make the button bigger. We could make the button bigger and still, you could still, I mean, duh, you don't have to have padding. You can still set a background. So I think this is pointless. I don't, because you could still set a background and the SVG takes the background, inherits the background. So let's just change the fill to dark blue. Menu button. Focus. Hover. Active. And then background color. This will change to blue. And then we'll take these 3 again. And then when we focus, we're going to trigger that SVG. Hover, trigger that SVG. Active, trigger that SVG. And we change the fill to white. And then let's transition this, transitioning the background color, 300 milliseconds, ease in out. You can use whatever you like. That's what I like to use. We'll do the same thing for the SVG so they have the same timing. We'll transition the fill, 300 milliseconds, ease in out. Oh, this is stroke. There we go. And that should work on both buttons. So we should have another button here. Just like that. The last thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure that when the drawer is open, this menu is visibility hidden. And actually we need to adjust some of visibility here on a couple of things. And here's the reason why. When we are hiding, let's move this down. When we're hiding the navigation with position fixed, it's still accessible. It's still accessible by a screen reader. And in order to make sure, there are 2 ways to make sure that the screen reader can't access it: display none or visibility hidden. I'm going to use visibility hidden. If we use display none display block, you cannot transition or animate display. you can transition and animate visibility. So that's what we're going to use. So with visibility hidden, this is hidden off screen, and a screen reader or assistive tech won't be able to see the navigation, and that's what we want. We want assistive tech to land on the button. The user decides if they're going to trigger the button to see the navigation. That's the expected behavior. So we are also going to transition the visibility right here. So we'll say comma visibility, also 300 milliseconds, ease in out. So now this is now accessible. And well, it is now because I'm also going to change this. So we're going to change the visibility to visible. And then I'm going to make sure that when the menu is active, the open button is also visibility hidden. And the reason for that is, even though we can't see it, somebody using a screen reader or their keyboard to tab through the navigation. So let's take this out. And then let's say you're tabbing through. Stop. So here we tab, we hit the logo. Here's the button to open the navigation. Let's say the navigation was open, that container was open. We don't want people to still have access to this button. So if the container is open, in other words, if there is a menu active class on the body, make sure that the open button is visibility hidden so the user can't tab back and activate that button. There's no reason to, it's already open. So this will be better illustrated once we get the JavaScript in place. Hopefully you can see that I do all of the heavy lifting with classes. And honestly, all we need is this one little class on the body, menu active. You can literally do nearly all of the work for mobile navigation just by adding a body class. The JavaScript is just going to be to trigger the body class when you either click the open button or click the close button. We'll do like one other thing, which is that we change this aria-expanded false to true. So we're going to do this also. So when we add a menu active, then it's aria-expanded true. When we close and remove the menu active, it's aria-expanded false again, what it is by default. So I hope that makes sense. So it's taken me a really long time. It's taken years of my life to really come up with a system for responsive, accessible navigation where CSS does most of the work, and you just need a tiny little bit of JavaScript for those click events. It's beautiful. It's a work of art, if I do say so myself. So thank you, Malik. Appreciate that. Rahul is here. Hello. You're just where you should be. The title is dangerous. The title is lazy, but yeah, right on time. And yes, we are getting down to business. We aren't fucking around. How about that? We can say those words. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. So I think that's it for today. We're over 2 hours. But we got a lot done today. I think we got a ton done today. I'm very happy with our progress. Where are we here? Very happy with our progress. Let's take off this menu active. We got the rest of the home page built. We, for the most part, made our responsive navigation. All of that is in place. We just need to get the JavaScript and the click events in there. Everything is responsive. We'll play around with animations also on Thursday, and we'll figure out what we want to do or how we want that to function. Animate CSS right out of the box, you don't need anything You don't need anything. The keyframes do all the heavy lifting for that. If we were to do animations that required scrolling, like you scroll something into view and you want that animation to wait for the scroll, I use intersection observer for that. Intersection observer. And I do have code for that tucked away. I have a little snippet someplace. So this is my preferred way of handling on scroll events with like a data attribute for animations. So if we decide that we need to do that, that's what I'm going to use. So there's no JavaScript for Animate.css. There's no JavaScript for are we talking about the same thing? There's no JavaScript for this. This is all just CSS. Where is it here? Oh, GitHub. This is all I'm going to do right here. It's just a CSS file. I feel like we're talking about two different things. So let's just do one here. All right, and I think all you have to do is animate, animated. So if we wanted to make the body do like a little shimmy, let's just do something obvious. Like bounce. Is that all it is bounce? Yeah, bounce. It doesn't really... let's just do the header. Let's just do like a bounce for the header. Or honestly, it would probably be more impactful if we did the logo, right? If on page load, there was like a little... Oh, we're not really seeing it. Animate duration. What if we just change this? It's not really working. Does it just need to be in a place that is a lot more obvious? Put it... I've used this a million times. It works really, really well. Hang on, I'm missing something. Yeah, but totally. I mean, we're in development though, right? So if you're gonna bulk out the file, this is a fine time to do it while you're actually in development. And then whatever I decide on later on, I will remove the rest. So it's okay to have your full file here while you're actually doing the development, in my opinion. So should we try like a delay or something? I feel like... It's not. Why isn't anything working? I've used this a million times. I feel like I'm missing something. It's the bounce. Hang on. I don't have the right class in here. Animate bounce. That's why. There we go. Why isn't it working? Okay, there it was. It was just a really long delay. Did we see it though? Here, now we can take out the delay. There we go. So there's the bounce. I mean, obviously we're not going to use that, but there's no JavaScript. There's no JavaScript. It's just all keyframes. And then once we decide on what our animations are, we can clean out that file. We don't have to keep the whole thing in. We could do... I mean, honestly, I personally think subtle is better. So if we wanted to do on the body, fade in, I've done this before, so you guys tell me what you think it should be. What do you think it should be? And tell me if we're talking about the same thing. Because yeah, this is all just CSS. Okay, let's go ahead and just push this. Oh, what is your problem? Premature end of file. Okay, it's nothing. Okay, git add. Git commits. Finished styles for footer and starting header. All right, that's that. Oops. Wrong one. We're done. We're done. I think we got a lot done today. So, okay. We'll be back on Thursday this week. We will finish the mobile navigation. We're almost done with the header. We can implement some styles, and then we will start working on the footer and the contact form. So, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Do me a favor. Hit the like button if you haven't already subscribed. If you haven't already liked, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Helps the algorithm, helps push this out to more people who might be interested in this content. Thank you so much for hanging out. All the questions in the chat. Accidental screen changes are always funny. Yes, my mouse. One time, I want you to just end a stream like that, like the starting soon. Silence for 24 hours. Thank you, Rahul, Malik, Monique. Thank you so much to everybody who hung out. Collar Shirts Rock was here. A few other people. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.